She was like a child who has the benefit of seeing things for the first time.
I think she liked me because when I was 8 years old, she asked me to be her art dealer.
She came to me and said, "Hey, I want to move out to the property you have in Galisteo, and I want to live out there." There began an adventure for me that lasted for 7 years.
And the way Agnes spoke was just very plain, but it always felt like the truth.
In her late work, Innocence has a more necessary ring to it. She meant it.
She was like the highest dose you could possibly take. There were no distractions.
For 30 years, Agnes and I had a ride we would take in New Mexico. She called it the Golden Circle. And I don't know how many times we drove the Golden Circle. But each time, Agnes found new things to see. It was so clear that her search for beauty was also her confirmation and search for innocence.
We were living in Santa Fe. My parents and my sister and I drove up to visit Agnes probably about once a month. And I remember one drive up, I worked up the courage and asked her, what is your art about? And she looked at me for a moment and then reached for a rose out of a vase next to her and asked me if it was beautiful. And I said, yes, of course. And she put it behind her back and asked me if it was still beautiful. And I said, yes. And she said, that's what my art is about.
What is innocence? When Agnes used the word innocence, I believe she was saying the same thing I do when I use the word. Where she always used the word to express appreciation. A painting could be its expression, intent, embodiment, a soul of perfect mind. She strove for this and wanted to make innocence her gift to others as her purpose and her gift to show.
One day, Agnes called me and said, "Bill, Bob Ellis came to my studio and said that if I would give him these first 7 paintings I made in Taos to the Harwood Museum, he would have a room built for them." And then Agnes used a word I'd never heard her use before. She said, "I'm jealous of your friend Twombly, who has a whole museum of his work in Houston. What do you think?" And I said, "Agnes, I think it's a wonderful idea for you to get the paintings to the museum." She did. There were 7 paintings, each with the title Untitled. A few months later, Bob Ellis called me and said, "Bill, yesterday I went into the gallery and all the untitled titles were crossed out, and now there are new titles. What should I do?" The titles were handwritten. I said, "Bob, first she gave you the paintings, now she's giving you the titles."
Agnes was certainly very private in her work and very solitary in her work, but she was known around the community as being quite warm, generous, and even really funny. Her afternoons often included lunch at the Trading Post Cafe, where she always sat at the same table, and people in town knew that you could go see Agnes, and she often picked up the check afterwards. In 2002, the Harwood hosted a celebration of Martin's 90th birthday with a major tribute. This celebration affirmed her continued creative vitality in her late years and deepened her relationship with the Taos community. The Harwood continues to celebrate Agnes's birthday every year. We serve blueberry muffins, which she was famous for serving, and the whole town comes out and celebrates Agnes on that day.
So I went to see Agnes in the spring of 2003. I was writing a profile of her, and she was and remains the most inspiring and unusual person I've ever interviewed. During lunch, she started talking about why she painted and what she painted. And it was really all about love, which maybe coming from some people might sound cheesy, but from her, I'm going to choke up now talking about it. It was so beautiful. And she said, in the beginning, love was all there is, something to that effect. And it was an incredibly moving moment for, I think, all of us.
She came to me, she said, you know, Donald, one of my lifelong goals was to go to the Northwest Territory of Canada and go down the Mackenzie River. And I thought about it for about a split second. I said, hey, that sounds pretty interesting, let's do it. She had a small 8-foot flat bottom aluminum boat. The time on the river was about a week. We camped in the boat and made it down the river to a certain point where Agnes said, okay, I've made it on the Mackenzie River, and back we went. On the way back, we ran into some horrific rainstorms, and we finally made it. I thought, my God, it's a wonder that we made it alive.
The way I met Agnes, I saw her give a talk, and like many people, I think, I felt that she was talking only to me, and that she held some truth that I needed to know. It took me a year to get up the courage to call her, and I wrote out a script to follow. And it started out with, hello, Agnes, this is Susan York. I didn't know then that we would visit pretty much every month for tea or walking in the arroyo by her house. She would take me in her studio, and before she opened the door, she would turn to me, and the way Agnes spoke was just very plain, but it always felt like the truth. And she said, never let anyone in your studio. And then she opened the door and brought me into her studio.
She was about a lot of things, but one thing she was really about was no distractions. I went out to visit Agnes the first time, and she took me to her house in Galisteo, and I stayed there for a couple days, and I swear there was no talking. Sit with another person, you had no expectation. I thought we're going to talk about art or we're going to talk about something. And boy, like sitting in silence teaches you a lot. And that was the start of my relationship with Agnes, where it's really the opposite of the life we all lead. And these paintings are really the opposite / antidote to the life we all lead.
She talked about wanting to paint what she called quiet and simple. Most people in life are just trying to move forward, but leaving out sitting and being quiet.
She believed that the art came when those voices were silent, when she was her awareness, not her ideas and thoughts, just aware, alert consciousness.
I think of her every time I see her work. I think that's something really special about her. She really comes through.
Agnes knew what she was looking for, and the certainty that she lived by was extraordinary, that she had that kind of recognition of what had meaning, what had beauty, and what had innocence.